Welcome to the Innovators. Each week, we're serving up real talk with badass women. We're dishing out the truth. No BS and no fluff here, just raw, honest stories and lessons to inspire and empower the next generation of trailblazing women. We're here to keep it real and pay it forward. I'm your humble host, Cynthia Nelson, three-time entrepreneur, investor, and advisor. Today, we're talking to Laurie McGinley, #1 bestseller on Amazon. Just hit everybody. Listen to this one. Transformational guide, South by Southwest keynote speaker, and CEO of Via Lucent. Okay, that's just a lot right there that I said.
Thank you for reading
But
all my trophies, Cynthia.
I was
That
okay.
was
So
amazing.
no, welcome to the show. So,
Thank you.
how did you get here? What's your story, backstory? Because there's a lot of things going on. There's author, there's coach, there's South by South. Like, what is the real story?
Cynthia, I have always been very, very ambitious, and that has looked different in different phases of my life. When I was a little kid, that looked like a lot of cuts and scars and scaring the hell out of my parents. Um, as I kind of grew into academic achievement and career achievement, it looked like setting my sights on something and just figuring out how to get there. As a younger person, was very dogged, was very willing to sacrifice, very willing to give it my all of the metaphors that you hear probably out of business school books, smashing through the
Yeah.
brick walls with no, all of that. I did all of that. And I became an architect. I'm a registered architect as well. I don't practice anymore, but I was in my job that I had fought to get for years, doing my thing. At 31, I had a stroke at work.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
I was, very ambitious person, Division I athlete for the University of Minnesota, a distance runner. At the time of the stroke, I was a daily urban bike commuter year round in Minneapolis. That body
Yeah.
should not have had a stroke.
No, no.
And at the moment, because I was so focused on achievement and running the achievement program, when it happened, I couldn't see my screen. My vision was so distorted that I couldn't see what I had been working on. And then I felt a headache like I've never felt before. And the first thing that went through my brain because I was running the program was, how am I going to finish my work tonight? I have a deadline.
Yeah, not like, oh, this could be a problem.
Yeah. And so
Ugh,
I ended up in the ER with my bicycle bag on my lap. And I don't remember the day after this.
I'm
I know I
sure.
got a ride home because my coworker would not let me walk home. I wanted to walk home like a
Yeah,
mile from the ER.
yeah, no,
Um, I'm certain that I got a ride back to work because my bike was there, worked a full day, and biked home. And I don't even
no.
remember that day.
Yeah, no, of course not.
So how
No.
did I get here? I wish I could tell you that that was a wake-up call. It wasn't. I burned out again 7 years later. It felt very, very different. It felt like I was walking through the world with three soaking wet wool blankets on my head. I felt very disconnected from things. I was really embarrassed that I couldn't achieve at work anymore. I
Yeah.
didn't want anybody to see that. I felt very alone in that, but I also couldn't disconnect from work. I was constantly sneaking peeks of work on my phone when I wasn't there, and I wasn't really there when I was there. And that was an even dreamier dream job. That was such a good job. So I ended up just resigning from that job. And I thought it would heal, and it doesn't heal on its own.
Yeah.
So I have always surrounded myself by ambitious people. I have always been a very ambitious person. I burned out twice. I spent 5 years metaphorically on the bench in an easier
Mhm.
job. And then I actually realized I had to go and heal it. And I dove into healing it and I realized what I'm here to do. And now I help other ambitious people do what they're here to do. And what I've found, Cynthia, is that most of them are burned out.
Yeah, totally.
I didn't set out to write a book about burnout, but burnout is in the title. I didn't set out to do this, but if you think about this, all of the badass, high achieving, incredible leaders that you know probably are very willing to dig deep, know that what they're working on is bigger than they are, never
Mhm.
give up, never going to
Mhm.
quit. I mean,
Never gonna
pivot,
quit.
yes,
No,
but never going to
never quit.
quit.
Yeah, no.
This is the recipe for burnout
Yeah. And disaster health wise.
and disasters, things like strokes at work when you're 31.
Yeah, which never should have happened.
That never should have happened.
No.
So
So,
I got here, excuse me, by being very ambitious in my own life, sending it too far, and then being really curious about how nobody ever has to do this ever again.
yeah,
I want people to, Cynthia, I want you to crush it.
yeah,
I want everybody to crush it. But I also want you to be a nice person to spend time with on Saturday afternoon instead of a
yeah.
jerk.
Yeah. And we see a lot of that. I mean, especially, today, what's happening and what's transpiring is pretty, I don't know, dismal. It's every conversation I have, it's every cocktail dinner, it's on everyone's mind. And it's
Yeah,
not just about the politics, it's about the attitudes and the
exactly.
dismissiveness and the I don't give a crap about anything else, but it's that. So, you know, in your practice, you're guiding people from these like
Yeah,
crazy reactive stress responses into more grounded, resourceful state.
totally.
How, you know, how do you do that, especially when the stressor feels like it's constant or unavoidable? Like we all
So
do with work related things or parenting or relationship.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything.
And I would say what I would say to you, these things that you're experiencing in every conversation you have, it's totally real.
Yeah.
I never minimize how absolutely critical and real this feels. And what I do when I first start with someone is I meet whoever it is, I meet you where you are.
Yeah.
This journey to me feels like getting on an on-ramp to go on a highway.
Hmm.
And if you're sitting in the grass at the bottom of the on-ramp, don't even have your shoes on, let alone not in a car, that's where I meet you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, what it feels like is when you're in these reactive stress modes all day long. Cynthia, somebody did a study. Hmm. Most of us spend about 70% of our day in a stress response,
Wow.
myself included, and I'm totally obsessed with this. It's just all around us. And so if you're at that place when I meet you, we start where we can and we start with something really low stakes, a home thing or a family thing or a friend thing or not a
Hmm.
work thing, right?
Hmm.
And so it's about understanding what it feels like to move over into homeostasis. A lot of very ambitious people have forgotten, and when we first go over there, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it feels very weird.
Yeah, it's just people, you can see people getting a little squirrely on Zoom. Like it's
Uncomfortable.
just not
Yeah.
quite right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so depending on who I'm starting with, I start where you are. But what everybody who hires me wants, there is something that I call your, all capitalized, big dream.
Hmm.
There is your big dream and all of the tools that you have developed in your lifetime. None of them work. You've tried all of them 4 times and it doesn't. And so people hire me to be like, how do I get that thing?
Right.
And what I literally guide people to do, and this is why I like the word guide, is I guide you to remember what it's like to be out of your stress response into your parasympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic is your fire alarm,
Hmm.
parasympathetic is when you're at rest. I remind you how to achieve from your parasympathetic nervous system. It feels really different. But one of the things is when you're in your emergency response system, you're really focused on certain data points.
Right. Right.
And maybe what you've experienced is people are really focused on the data points that reinforce their own reality. So if you've
Yeah,
had these
for
conversations, right, you know
sure.
how people
Oh,
can be
yeah.
really hardened,
Oh, yeah.
right? So when you move over into your parasympathetic, you will literally hear new things in the same environment. You will see new things in the same environment. And if you want new results,
Yeah.
don't you need to hear and see and speak new things?
Yeah, for sure. But it's so hard in that moment.
It
It's so
is.
hard in that moment to switch, but learning how to switch is the key, right? We've
It's
all
the
had those
key.
situations where we're like, why are they doing this? Why are they, they're making the situation stressful for me for no reason. Now I'm
Mhm.
worried about it. Why am I worried? It really shouldn't be my worry, and
Yep.
you build it up into being
Yep.
something that frankly, it's probably freaking even not. It's not even about
Yeah.
you.
And the reality, Cynthia, is what you just described is how we evolved. We build it up into be a big thing. It's protective. It's how your ancestors survived.
Yeah, it's survival
It
mode.
is
That
their
makes
gift to
sense.
you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so we all work these things up into bigger than they are because if we can anticipate the worst outcome,
Right.
our chances of surviving
Well,
lesser outcomes are increased, right?
right,
And
right.
so when that, think way back 50
Yeah,
generations ago, 100 generations ago, that was what kept your people alive. In 2025, that causes some social challenges,
yeah, for sure.
right? And so it's really in learning how to notice when you've moved into one of those self-inflating realities, because we get very
Yeah.
self-focused when we're in
Oh,
this
oh
mode.
yeah, yeah.
So learning really how to discern what that feels like, because maybe it's become normal,
Mm-hmm.
and then acclimating to being out of that and
Mm-hmm.
relearning how to operate out of that. Because we all at some point in our life operated outside of this.
Yes.
We just, as especially ambitious people, as we
Yes.
go on, we get really used to survival mode.
Like muscle memory. It's like muscle
Hmm.
memory, right?
Totally.
You can switch it on, switch it off. So what do you see as a limiting belief or most often see in like high achievers holding them back? And how do you help them kind of unlearn? I mean, you talked about some of it, but is there like
Yeah.
a general one that you see of a limiting belief?
I would put them, I think there's like a group that is very, very common. And it generally falls into the camp of I don't have the right degree from the right school. I'm not from the right family.
Mhm,
I don't look like people who are achieving in the area where I want to achieve for
mhm,
a myriad of reasons.
mhm,
Or I'm not good enough yet.
mhm, mhm.
And so some of that is like a self-limiting belief is I wasn't born with it, so therefore I'm never going to have it. I'm never going
Right,
to be rid of the self-limiting belief. But the
right,
last one is I just don't know enough yet.
right.
And I call this one the sheet cake moment. Now, I'm in the Midwest. I don't know if in New York you celebrate with sheet cakes. I know
I
this is a
love,
very
yeah,
Midwest
yeah,
thing. So you get the sheet cake, Cynthia, when it's a big deal and you're going to have a lot of people over,
yeah,
right? That's why you get a sheet cake. It's practical. So in adulthood, there's a scarcity of sheet cake moments. The last one I had was my last graduation, which was a long time ago.
right, right, right,
And when you do something in life as an adult, you decide when it's time for the party.
right,
Nobody decides that for you. There's no graduation date.
right,
You
right,
decide. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is to look around in their life at what's going on and be like, what can you put the sheet cake on? It's
right. That makes
done.
sense. That
You're
makes total
not in
sense.
process. You've made it.
Yeah.
You're an expert. You belong.
Somebody was asking me recently about, I was posting on something that we did in a company that we grew. And they said, like, what's your, what's the one thing, something that you learned? And the one thing I learned was like, we never celebrated the small stuff. I mean, I look back at the press releases and I am friggin' exhausted by what we did in 10 years and the types of things we did, but we rarely stopped to enjoy the sheet cake. It was
What do you
always
think might have
go,
been
go,
different if you
go.
had?
I mean, we were all great at what we were doing, and there was, complete camaraderie and things, but I think it could have just been less stress in a lot of situations, less, confrontation at sometimes when things weren't going as well, or money was running out, or raising capital, whatever it happened to be at that moment, or we didn't get the new Univision deal, whatever it happened to be,
Mhm.
it would have been less. I think it would have been less stress and more harmony because we did take the time to celebrate. But I looked back and like, the Christmases I didn't do, the trips I didn't take with friends. Oh no, I need to work on the business. Oh no. And I realized, oh, this is so now it's, 15 years later, I'm like, wow, it was so stupid of me.
And
What
I
was I won't do that again. I won't
and I
give
want to
up my,
offer something. If anybody's listening who you've skipped holidays and
oh,
celebrations,
yeah,
it's because you're human.
yeah,
We evolved to be drawn towards this stress response.
yeah, totally.
Every time you get into a stress response, you get an upper.
Oh,
You get
completely.
you
Oh,
get a jolt of energy, right?
completely. Oh, yeah.
It's highly addictive.
Yeah. Oh,
And
completely.
and Cynthia, I don't know in your company, but if you remember and you look around at all of you were probably all high achievers. So you had a
Yeah.
culture of high achieving.
Yeah.
You had a culture
Definitely.
of digging deep. You were working on something bigger than you were.
Yeah.
It became normal
Yeah.
to skip that stuff and to sacrifice and be like, I only
Yeah.
really need 4 hours of sleep tonight for the
Yeah.
14th night in a row. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so we do this because it's human nature. So if you've got a spark of ambition in you, that beautiful mammal that you live in wants to keep chasing the hit, the upper
Yeah.
of that stress response. And so when I meet people and I show them what it feels like to move over into homeostasis, it feels really weird, especially
Weird.
if you can sustain it for a couple of days. Your body starts going into neurochemical withdrawal. Your body wants you to stay addicted to the emotions that you feel every day, no matter what they are.
Yeah.
And so if you make a big dramatic change, and this is, by the way, do you remember taking vacations during that time?
No.
Yeah, if you had taken a vacation it might have been really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it would have taken me days to relax. By the time I relaxed, I would have been on the plane coming home.
Exactly. It's because you're in neurochemical withdrawal.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're on a beach in a beautiful place, but you're used to getting a stress hit by checking email and having
Yeah,
conversations and calling
totally.
customers and right?
Yeah,
And all
yeah,
of a sudden you don't have anything to do and your body's like, "Where's my
yeah,
hit, man? I
yeah.
I don't I don't like this beach thing. Get back, get your phone out of your pocket. I want my hit."
And
And you find your phone in your hand.
yeah, and it's also that I think, you know how it is when people retire, they leave a job, their whole world
Yes.
is so built into that role. And
Hmm.
so, their whole sense of being is built
Hmm.
into that. And walking away or taking time is you're not
Hmm.
achieving, you're not
Hmm.
being the person that everyone on LinkedIn or whatever you do that thinks that you are. And you're
Hmm.
so much more than that. But it took me such a long time to realize, oh yeah, that's just dumb.
It took me a really long time too. I mean, I burned out twice and then five
Yes.
years later figured it out. And the reason I'm doing what I do now, you don't have to wait that long.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't
right.
have to go through this cycle. And in
Yeah,
fact, please don't. 0 out of 10. I do not
yeah.
recommend burnout.
No, no, no. Yeah, no.
And
I,
I always wonder, I have this question, Cynthia.
yeah.
What would be possible if we grabbed people who wanted to change the world before they got into this and we gave them the tools and we gave them the peer group and we showed them what it looked like to thrive your way to the podium? Because right now, the common vision that you see in media and in your peers and in
It's not
everybody is
that.
you survive your way to the podium. You
Oh
struggle
yeah.
and sacrifice for years, and then you stand on that podium for however long your national anthem is, and
Right.
then you're done.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what if we could teach people that they can thrive their way, they can feel amazing the entire journey?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing? I mean, I just
What
know
would be possible?
so many women, and I was going to ask this question, do you see a difference in how women are becoming their best selves or taking the time to do it? Is there something unique about the female experience or circumstance that's different in taking that moment to be their best selves and go to that
Yeah.
place?
Let's talk about this. And I'm going to be transparent about who I'm answering. I'm answering you as a very, very gender fluid transgender
Yeah,
person
yeah,
who was
yeah.
socialized femme, right?
Right.
So, absolutely what I see is people who were socialized female have a slightly different route than people who were socialized male. And a lot of that just comes with what we encourage people to do or the beliefs that happen early on in life,
Hmm, hmm.
right? One of the other things that we see predominantly is that, the way that investment dollars go.
Yeah.
This tiny little minuscule percentage goes to women, and an even
Yes.
teensy tinier bit goes to non-white women,
Oh my,
right?
yeah, and LGBTQ and
Yeah, and it
black and
just gets
brown.
smaller and smaller, and I can't even figure out
It's
what the percentage is,
minutia.
right?
Yeah, no.
Right. And so part of that is, yeah, absolutely. You see it all around you. You see it in the media. You see it in everything. You hear it in conversations. And as much as I despise this phrase, imposter syndrome shows up differently in men than it shows up in women.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what I experience, and I'm going to even go even more nuanced than this, because the reason I wrote my book like this, the reason I set my standing desk up right now is it looks different in different people. This book is about 4 different kinds of leaders.
Tell the name of the book just so
The
our
book
listeners,
is
yeah.
Running into the Petri Dish of Burnout, a How Not to Guide. And it talks about 4 different kinds, what burnout feels like in 4 different kinds of leaders. And what I would almost say is you'll find more similarity, men and women, in your personality type than you will by saying, here's what it looks like in women and here's what it looks like in men.
Interesting, a personality. That makes sense.
Because burnout feels different based on what your motivation is.
Uh-huh.
And the way
Uh-huh.
that I talk about the leadership types, and the 4 types, I didn't write about all of them, I just did 4. So I talk about the perfectionist,
Mm-hmm.
the hero, the
Mm-hmm.
researcher, and the
Mm-hmm.
motivator.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever your gender expression is, if you
Mm-hmm.
identify with one of those more,
Mm-hmm.
you will, like the researcher has a very different path than the perfectionist has,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I would say is it's not a one size fits all, excuse me, in any way. It's different for your gender expression, it's different for your personality type. And one of the things that I found personally in being burned out and in supporting people through burnout, excuse me, everybody feels alone. Everybody feels like they're the only one on the planet going through it.
Mhm.
And I wrote this book, Cynthia, because for 5 years, I had private one-on-one conversations with people where they told me exactly what it felt like. And some of them I even know that they know each other and they weren't talking to each other.
So
So
interesting.
it's so isolating when what you crave and what you desire is success and you're willing to give it your all. And you feel so completely alone because you think nobody else has ever gone through this.
It's
So I think with women, that tends to show up as a little bit more working really hard, giving it 110% stuff.
mhm,
With men, it tends to show up more as covering up lack of self-esteem and lack of
mhm,
self-confidence, and that kind of
mhm,
comes out a little bit more sideways some ways.
mhm.
But that both of them end up being a little bit, they think they're Sha'Carri Richardson, but they're running on a hamster wheel.
Yeah. I mean, I see it in I mean, I used to travel 150,000 miles a year domestic,
Wow,
which is just
that's
dumb.
a lot of travel.
That's a lot of travel every year. I mean, executive platinum. Yes, I got upgraded every time, but it didn't really matter at the end of the day. Now I get on a plane, I'm like, I just can't wait to get off. It's like,
Yeah.
unless I'm going somewhere fun. But I have friends and and they're still doing the same things. I'm a little older than most of them, but they're still doing the same thing. And I just see like you went from here to here to here, and then you had a cold and in between and da. And I'm like, this ain't natural, man. Like you gotta stop and it's but everything is it's ego driven, it's achievement driven, it's not money driven. It's I always think like, oh, it's because they're making like has nothing to do with capital. It's the I am who I am to the world and I have to achieve these things and therefore I will take the red eye and I will do this and I will go to Europe and I will come back in 3 days and then I will go to a conference and I will speak on a stage and it's 150 degrees outside. Like it doesn't even matter. They're gonna just do it and I will run from 8 in the morning till 1 o'clock at night for 4 days straight and then I will come on. I mean, and
I
I
call
look at
that
it
running the program, Cynthia.
yeah, it's scary because I think and health wise, they're not doing anything good for their well, mental health aside, physical health. No workouts are happening.
No.
That
And when you travel
you're
like
on
that, food, it's hard to get
the
healthy
food.
food.
Just gonna say it's hard to
Yeah.
get healthy food. You're taking clients out, they're having cocktails, you're doing this, you're having nibbles, and it's none of it is good.
Yeah.
None of it's good. But I do see this pattern and I don't think until you get older, you actually start to think, this is just dumb, you know? But God, if we could have had that mentality and that thought process of thriving to that success
Yeah.
early,
Yeah.
like
What
being
if you
taught,
learned
like
in fourth
kindergarten,
grade?
I'm
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
kindergarten,
What if
man. I'm
you learned
taking
in
kindergarten.
kindergarten
Like you
how
could thrive.
to
Yeah, exactly.
drive your way to what you want?
Yeah. What a different place we would be in, I think,
Hmm.
and what a different generation.
Hmm.
Uh, I think
How
it's
much
really
kinder would we
profound.
be
Oh,
to each other?
that's the other thing. We could actually talk about things with versus us versus them. That whole defensive mechanism
And
that
to feel
comes in,
totally secure that I can stand in my light and radiate who I am, and you can stand in your light and radiate who you are. And if that's different, that we can just be there with each other.
and it's
What a different
okay.
world we would have.
Yeah, completely. No, completely. Lori, we could go on for like freaking weeks here. Everybody's got to like get this book. How do they get a hold of you and get on your calendar? What's your
So
website?
you can find me at Via Lucent. And I am very loose and open with my phone number. You can text me. Here's my number, 612-504-2180. I'd prefer a call. I'm Gen X, but you can text me if that's more comfortable. And I would say if you're thinking about doing this, you don't have to keep living like this. And in fact, if what you crave is wild success, you will never get it by stressing yourself out and traveling the way Cynthia just described and putting yourself last. You will literally never get it. The biology, the neurochemistry is not there for you to do new things when you're stressed out like that. All I do is I guide people to learn how to thrive your way to the podium because that big dream that you want, you're going to have to become someone new. And that new you is nicer and happier and feels better and gets better results. And it's not as far away as you think it is.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been really, really great. Congratulations on everything.
Thank
Everybody's got to
you.
run out and get the book. I'm going to run out and get the book. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time. This has been a delight.